Hi everyone, welcome back to the 86 F's to Give podcast. I'm your host Al, and I am so glad you are here with me today. I wanted to start by saying thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who listened or watched the first episode. I was absolutely overwhelmed with the positive feedback and kindness that I received from everyone, and it just made me so much more excited to continue to do this. And it just reassured me that I'm on the right track, and when you do things that you're really passionate about, people will support you, and that's just the coolest part of this whole thing. Obviously I mentioned how it took me 2 years to even start this podcast, so just to receive so much positive feedback was just it was amazing. So I'm so extremely grateful, and I hope you all continue to enjoy and stick along with me on this journey. I also wanted to say, if anybody is hopping into episode 2 without listening to at least the first 10 minutes of episode 1, maybe even less, I would do that really quick just so you understand the concept of this podcast and how these episodes are going to work. If you're here, welcome. I'm so excited to have you all here for episode 2. This is just the coolest thing. I can't even explain how it feels to finally be doing this. So without further ado, let's hop into today's episode, which is 86 not going after your goals. So last week, I know I talked about this a little bit, but that was more from the mindset of being too afraid to go after your goals because you're worried about what people are going to think. Whereas in today's episode, we're going to dive deeper into the active goal setting and the preparation that is required to set ourselves up for success when we set a goal. And I want to just start off with talking a little bit about my personal journey with goal setting and just goals in general. I feel like I didn't really take goal setting really seriously until after college, honestly. I feel like when you're in school, school is the main thing you're focusing on. And, I felt satisfied by just doing well in school and in athletics. And honestly, none of the athletic teams I was on were really that good. So our goals as a team were more to just have fun and, smaller goals that we would achieve, set for ourselves. And when you're in school, it's okay, obviously your goal is to do well and, get good grades or whatever it may be. But basically your teachers and your professors are telling you how to do that. You don't necessarily have to go out of your way to be okay, well, I need to get this grade on this assignment and blah, 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 all this stuff. Yes, you want to make sure that you're studying and preparing yourselves for exams and things, but it just felt like most of the work was done for me by, professors and teachers in high school and stuff. Okay, you need to be at this place at this time, and you need to do this, you need to just complete these assignments, hand them in on time, and you'll get good grades. So it kind of felt like I didn't have to do as much of the background work of goal setting, if that makes any sense. I hope that's relatable to some people. I know not everyone feels the same about school. School comes easily to some people and not at all to some people. So if that does not resonate with you and you're no, I actually had to work really hard and set a lot of goals for myself in school, then that is totally awesome as well. I'm jealous that you had that experience with goal setting, early on in life, because I got to post-college life and had no idea how to set a goal and actually, trust myself that when I said something that I was going to do, that I was going to do it. So first, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the types of goals that I use and that I think are the most common. And this is in terms of the timing of them. So I just broke it down into 3 categories: daily goals, short-term goals, and long-term goals. So daily goals are obviously things that you do every day, every other day. And that's making your bed, going on a walk, working out, walking your dog, whatever it may be. Those are not smaller goals, but just things that you're physically able to do every day. Things that don't take much preparation or time or effort to build up to something larger. For short-term goals, this is more of something that you would do every other week or once a month. And this could be putting X amount of dollars into your savings account every month. And then long-term goals are obviously things that take a year or 2 years, and you want to say in 2 years from now I want to buy a house or want to buy a car, whatever it may be. That's larger goals that are going to take a lot of more time, research, energy, money, saving money, all of that. It takes a lot longer to be able to achieve that goal. And like I mentioned earlier, these goals kind of feed into each other. So if we do it in the reverse order, Long-term goals can be broken down into short-term goals, which then can be broken down into daily goals. So, for example, with the car, I want to buy a car by in 2 years, that can be broken down into short-term goals, and that can go along with the saving money. So I know I need this much money to buy a car by the end of these 2 years. So every month I'm going to save this much money over the next 24 months. And then with daily goals, that can be broken down even further to being like, I'm going to work this many hours each day to make sure that I'm able to save this much amount of money for my short-term goal to then add up to my long-term goal. And obviously that can be broken down for any goal. That one I just kind of came up with on the spot and was kind of tricky for the daily goals, but you guys get the idea. I also feel like you can't talk about goal setting and goals without bringing up SMART goals. And everyone has probably heard of this acronym if you've talked about goals before, but the acronym SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. I really like to hone in on the S, M, and T of that, so making sure I'm really specific with my goals, making sure that there's something in there where I can measure if I've achieved it or not, and then giving myself a time frame. Sometimes I have a little bit of beef with the words achievable and realistic. Now, obviously, I'm not going to set a goal that I cannot is physically impossible. That I'm aware of. But sometimes I think it's okay to, when you're first starting out, especially with goal setting, it's like, you might think something is realistic and then you start doing the goal for a month or two and realize, hey, I can actually only do this many times a month or this many times a week or whatever. And then you're able to scale your goal back until maybe you can do it as often as you originally thought you could. I just feel like realistic is such a subjective term when you're talking about yourself. It's like, of course I want to be able to do these things and like in theory I can and there's time to do them, but it's like, maybe I'm not going to feel up to it every day or, things may come up and it's like, I don't know, sometimes that word just feels a little challenging for me. I could maybe be alone in that, but I just am like, I obviously know the goals need to be realistic in the sense that like they're physically possible. But I like to hone in on the other aspects, like I said, specific, measurable, and time-bound to really set my goals, because once I do that, I feel like I give myself the option for them to be realistic and be achievable. If you're just starting out with goal setting, starting with the SMART goals is a really good place to start because it just helps you with the wording and the preparation of a goal to help hopefully give you like a higher success rate. So what I mean by the wording is like, I would say a bad example of a goal is I want to read more, right? Like that is so vague, not specific at all. There's no time frame. There's nothing in there that says what more means. There's nothing to make it measurable. I guess that's technically achievable and realistic, but you're not really giving yourself the best shot if you aren't able to measure it. So by the end of the year or whatever, you're going to be like, well, I'm not really sure if I read more or not. Like, I don't know what more means. Like, maybe I read one more book than I normally do, but that's not really what I had in mind when I was setting this goal. So it makes it really hard for you to tell if you even achieved it or not, right? A better example of that goal and would be more of a SMART goal would say, you would say, I want to read 12 books this year. And that would be obviously more of a long-term goal, right? So by the end of the year, I want to read 12 books. And that can get broken down into, I want to read one book a month, right? And that can even get broken down into a smaller daily goal of, I'm going to read 10 pages a day, or I'm going to read one chapter every other day. You can kind of look at the book ahead of time and be like, what makes the most sense for, this book this month, to be able to achieve my long-term goal of reading 12 books this month. And I think that really is the most crucial part in goal setting, is breaking the goals down. When you look at a year and you say, I want to read 12 books this year, it's like, okay, well, 12 isn't really that large of a number. And knowing you have 365 days to complete it, it's like kind of goes on the back burner of it not feeling very, in the beginning of the year, it doesn't feel like high stakes or there's much pressure on achieving that goal. But when you break it down and you say, I'm just going to read one book a month, like that makes it so much easier instead of accidentally waiting until August or September and you still have, 8 books left to read because you were kind of just chilling with your goal and not really setting more, short-term or daily goals to kind of keep you on track. So that's like why I think it's so crucial, is because yeah, of course you can probably read, some people can read 12 books maybe in a month and do it all in December or all in 2 months at the end of the year. But, that might bring along some stress or anxiety, or you might not complete the goal and then you feel down that you didn't follow through with what you said you were going to do. You didn't achieve a goal, where you could have been more prepared by breaking those down into short-term and daily goals. Like sometimes my long-term goals are like for 2 months from now, and like this podcast, I mean, I had this idea for 2 years, but I didn't really start working on any of the things that I needed to do to make this happen until like about 2 months ago. And the first thing I did was set a date that I wanted the first episode to come out. And it was kind of random. I think it might have been exactly 2 months from the date that I started first thinking about it. I was like, July 25th, my first episode is coming out. I wrote that down in my journal. I set days over the past 2 months to work on different aspects of this podcast. You have to really break things down in order to make them happen. And like I said, this was only over a 2-month period of time, but I would consider this a long-term goal because it wasn't something that I was going to be able to achieve, the next day or even the next week. Now we're here, and it's so rewarding when you see that. It's like, it made it so much more digestible to actually achieve it because, you're only doing one task a week or a couple tasks a week or one task a day or whatever it may be. And then once you have all those small goals add up to your long-term goals, it's like, wow, like I am capable of doing anything if I break it down and really, trust myself and follow through with what I say I'm going to do. I also wanted to talk about kind of how I personally keep track of my goals. So I actually have my like goal journal with me here today. And I have tried so many different methods of goal setting, things that have worked, things that haven't worked. What has worked for me over the past few years is breaking the year up into quarters. So I actually first started doing this when I stumbled across the, I think it's called like the Next 3 Months journal, and it's not really broken into specific months, so you can kind of do it at any 3 months of the year. But I really, really loved this format because I used to try to think so far ahead, and I would plan things out for, the end of the year and goals that I wanted to do by the, October, November, December. And it's like, we're in January. Like I can't even like fathom thinking that far ahead. It was such a helpful planner because it only went up to the next 90 days. And yeah, I guess it was a marketing tactic for them because you have to keep buying one, 4 times a year, but it was so helpful for me. And then I kind of went off of that and made my own version in my own journal, but I will talk about that more in a second. But breaking the year down into quarters is, I mean, I didn't invent that. That's things like businesses and companies do that to like reflect on their success and their growth opportunities. And I've heard so many other podcasters and people talk about, Q1, Q2, like breaking things down into quarters. And this is the first year that I've actually done it with like the monthly, January, February, March was Q1. Like I said, when I had that planner before, I was doing 3 random months and then I would maybe take a month off and, do 3 other random months. But this year is the first year that I've really tried to stay, in tune with the quarters of the year and online with that, because it's also fun to like reflect with other people. Like my roommates and I have been doing like Q1 reflections, Q2 planning sessions, and then we'll do Q2 reflections and plan Q3, and it's just been so fun. And so what I did, and I think I mentioned this a little earlier, was break my goals into different aspects of my life. So I'm going to open my journal and just look here. So I broke it into personal, work, financial, mindful, relationships, exercise, creative, health, and Puda, my dog. So those are the areas, 9 different areas of my life that I, wanted to be better in and set goals in. And when I started doing this in January, I probably had like 4 or 5 bullet points under each section, which is just bonkers when you multiply that by 9 because that's how many sections I have. And I don't think I even like achieved all 4 or 5 under any section. Like I might have achieved 1 maybe from each section because I had so many freaking goals on my planner. Like it was just impossible and it's so overwhelming. And that's what I mean when technically I could have done all of that, but it's like, let's be a little more realistic, that word that I hate. And and be like, okay, maybe I only need to, try to do one in each section or two in each section. So that's what I did for Q3. And it's only the end of July, so we're only like about a third in, but it's going so much better than the other 2 quarters so far, and I'm like so proud of myself and feeling so motivated. But I wanted to share a couple of goals that I have under each section just to, I don't know if that's interesting or will help anyone else like with their goal setting. But under my personal, I have one audiobook per month, so that is obviously 12 books a year, and I am a terrible reader. I just cannot stick with books when I read them. So I recently discovered that I love listening to audiobooks. So that has been a goal of mine, is to keep doing that. And I'm like ahead of track with that. It's just been so fun this year to do that. One of my work goals was, and now this is where we get not so smart with our goals and the acronym, because this one is not very measurable at all, but sometimes it's okay to put, well, for me at least, and honestly, no one's making up the rules on your goals, so you can do whatever feels right for you. But some of these goals aren't exactly measurable, and it's just kind of like things I want to be more mindful of and keep in mind when I am going about my days or going about this aspect of my life. So one of my work goals was to just slow down when completing tasks and ultimately make less mistakes when, if it's a little spelling error, and even if it's a fixable mistake, like it's something I just want to be, I want that to happen less often. In my financial, I have put X amount of dollars into my savings each month for mindful, and these aren't really measurable at all as well, but I just put limit calling myself a child and try to limit my cursing. That's something I've been working on. I want to have a whole episode about calling yourself, like, I don't know, belittling yourself because of how young you are. So stay tuned for that. But that's something that I've been doing for years, and it's just like, it's not funny anymore. It's not a bit that I want to keep doing in my life. So that's something I put here. Under relationships, I put initiate plans with somebody 2 times a month. I feel like that didn't feel like a lot, but it like took time to, find dates and things with people that I don't usually see over the month of July. But we made it happen, and I'm really excited to keep doing that. For exercise, I have run 7 miles a week. I'm recently been getting into running. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm sure you've been seeing all my runs. Yeah, I'm kind of retraining myself with how I look at running. So that's been really fun. Under creative, the one goal I put there was start a podcast. So that's awesome that we can check that one off. Under health, I have make a dentist appointment, which I did. And then Puda, I want to try leaving him home alone for 20 minutes out of his crate, his casa. So we will see if I can muster up the courage to do that. He is like the most anxious dog, so I'm worried he's gonna like destroy something or eat something he's not supposed to, because he's crate trained and he's so good in his crate and has his routine. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to test the waters yet with that, but that's something I want to work on, being more trusting and confident in him and our training and our relationship that he'll be okay. So yeah, those are some of the goals that I have for myself. And then I actually, when I flip, I broke it down July, August, and September, and I just made trackers for each month. So I just have like audiobook and a box to check it off, put blank into savings, box to check it off, run 7 miles each week, and I have 4 boxes to check off for each week. Initiate plans, 2 boxes, and then I have little sections just reflect on July, and I'm like so excited to do that. And I pick different colors to use for each month. Like, it's just finding little ways to make these tracking and goal setting fun. And if you're a color coder and an organizer like me, like, this is so fun for me. I also did a section about the non-measurable goals, and I just put boxes and titled them with each of the goals. So like the slowing down or calling myself a child less, like just a box. And like anytime, each month throughout the next 3 months next 2 months that I reflect and feel like I'm doing a good job of this, I've just been writing it down, just writing down moments to reflect on at the end of this quarter. Then I also have a section to write down my motivation levels. I've been trying to track this. I don't know if this has anything to do with my menstrual cycle or just my the time of year that it is, because I know people experience different mental health experiences during different times of the year, and the summer and the fall are my really good times of the year. So I'm really interested in to keep tracking my motivation levels throughout the next year, because this year, like this month has been, every time I've written in this, it's been, I feel great, I'm so excited to keep going after my goals, all this stuff. And then like February's gonna come and I know it's gonna be like, I'm so sad, I can't do anything. Like, so I'm just curious to see kind of how that goes. So that's something I'm doing as well. And then I just have a section for affirmations, manifestations, magic moments. And then I've been writing out my week every Sunday. I've been planning my weeks. And that's also really helpful because I look at my weekly goals. So, okay, I want to run 7 miles each week. What days am I going to run on? Like, what days do I have time that I know I can make that happen on? And that's like I said, when you break down your goals to as small as they can get, it makes it so much easier to actually make it happen. And when you write these all down, it just feels like you kind of see it on paper and you're like, oh, that looks like a lot. Like, I'm not gonna be able to do all that. Or it's like, oh, that doesn't look like enough, or that looks perfect. Like, you just kind of see it rather than keeping it all in your head and trying to, I don't know, I'm someone that can't just leave my to-do list and everything, my goals all in my head, because I will forget or just lose track of things. So I've been loving making my own little planner, tracker, goal organizer. And I'm really excited to look back on all of this at the end of the year. And it really hasn't been taking up that many pages, so I think I can fit even maybe a couple years in here. So that'll be really cool to reflect on and just see like where my journey, started to where it is currently in the next few years, and maybe I'll even set goals for that. But I wanted to end this episode with talking about the importance of goal setting and, following through with the things that you say you're going to do, because when you don't follow through with things that you say you're going to do, your body starts to get conditioned into not trusting your own word. But when you tell yourself you're going to do something and you do it, even if it's something as simple as making your bed or putting your clothes away when you get home from work, and it's like you get home and you don't do it, it's like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. It's like, no, now your brain and your body is like, I can't trust anything this girl says. Whereas like if you get home and you were like, I do not feel like doing this at all, but I wrote down in my to-do list that I wanted to do this today, let me just freaking do it. And your brain will start to be like, okay, cool. Like I can push through feeling, tired or exhausted or whatever it may be. And I'm all for listening to our bodies and making sure that we're not overexerting ourselves and doing anything that's going to be detrimental to your mental health or anything like that. But sometimes you just need a little push, and being able to push yourself is a skill. And I feel like, being able to push yourself towards your goals is like the ultimate skill, because I truly believe we're in this life to, not only benefit, the people around us and build a community and be a light in this world, but to make yourself the best version of yourself while you're here. Like that is truly what motivates me. And, if I set a goal for myself, I think that goal is going to make me towards the best version of myself. Like I'm going to make sure I do everything in my power to do it. And I've just recently gotten to that mindset. So I am not speaking like I am the ultimate goal setter. I have literally just started being more consistent and actually following through with what I say I'm going to do in the past few months. So this is something that is very much still a journey. And I mentioned that in last episode that all of these things kind of are going to be journeys and things that we're working towards. So these are just a few things to help people get started. But I also think goal setting helps give people direction and purpose and motivation in life, like I was just talking about, and it builds healthy habits. Like I mentioned, the making your bed. Like I used to never make my bed, especially in college when I didn't have my mom telling me to make my bed or anyone telling me to make my bed. It was always a mess because I would just come home and go to bed. Like I didn't care that it wasn't made. And side note, I don't even sleep under my comforter, so it really is just folding a blanket and putting the pillows back in place. So I had no excuse to not be making my bed. And don't judge me for not sleeping under my comforter. I get too hot and I just prefer a fuzzy blanket, okay? A light fuzzy blanket, not a thick comforter. Anywho, I digress. But one year, I think maybe probably right after graduation, I was like, and this is just how I felt personally about myself. I'm not judging anyone that doesn't make their bed. I do not care. It does not affect me at all. But I was like embarrassed that I couldn't even make my bed in the morning. Like I just was at a point where I was like not doing anything really for myself. And the fact that I couldn't even make my bed was like just disappointing me. So I set out a goal to make my bed every single day. And I think that's literally the only thing that I can say without a doubt that I do every single day. Like there are things that I say, I want to pack my lunch before work, or I want to lay my outfits out. And I do it most days, but there is nothing I do every single day like I make my bed. It has become a part of my morning. And like I said, I only have to fold a blanket and put pillows back into place, so I have no excuse. And I'm just like proud that I can come home to a clean room and, I can sit at my desk and feel like my room is organized and not overly cluttered. And that helps me think more clearly. And yeah, it just makes everything in my life better. And so that is something I've been doing for the past, 3 years now, and I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. And I think there's even like studies about people that make their bed being more successful, and that is not why I started doing this at all, but it's just like you start your day off with completing a task, and it's like, okay, I got up and did that. It also helps me to get out of bed. Like if the first time I wake up, if I get up to go to the bathroom and I just put my pillows into place and fold my blanket, it's like, okay, well, now I'm not going to lay back down. I just made my bed. Like, let me go do something else that I need to do this morning to be productive. Take my dog out, make my breakfast, whatever it may be, start working, whatever it is. I think goal setting really gives people that motivation and direction and purpose in life, and it builds self-trust, and it allows you to be the best version of yourself because you're actually doing things that you want to do that are good. You're putting good energy out into the world, and that is really my biggest thing. And yeah, I hope this episode made sense and was a little bit helpful. I know it was a little less motivational than the last one, and this was more kind of just talking through goals and the importance of what I think the importance of goal setting is, but I hope that was a little bit helpful. And if anyone has any thoughts or questions, like I said, please feel free to message me and DM me or comment on the podcast. Like, I want people to, talk to each other in the comments and make new friends and things like that. Like, that is my ultimate dream here for this little community. So feel free to, respond to each other or your thoughts on goal setting and what works for you. If you have any cool tips, like, I want to hear it all. So yeah, make sure to follow us at 86Fs to Give on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, all the things. I will link everything in all the correct places that you need to be able to find everything. But thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I am here to remind you that you are loved and I am proud of you. And remember to 86 not going after your goals. Bye, everyone.